welcome Abijoma Onyato tonight. Transport Minister Chibuike Amechi denies ceding Nigeria's waterways to a foreign firm as House of Representatives continues investigation into the allegations. Senate to investigate state governor's approval of $1 billion from the excess crude account to fight insurgency in the northeast. We continue with our review of the year 2017, and tonight security comes under focus. A United Nations General Assembly votes against President Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as Israeli capital.
On business news tonight, federal government plans to raise additional $2.5 billion as Nigeria's Eurobond and diaspora bond gets listed on the FMDQ OTC Securities Exchange.
On sports news, Nigeria Super Eagles end 2017 as the world's number 51 in the final FIFA World Rankings for the year and are 9th on the continent.
And from Abuja, federal government gives assurance of immediate end to lingering fuel crisis nationwide.
We begin tonight from Abuja, where attempts by the House Committee on Public Petitions to investigate the alleged ceding of some Nigeria's waterways to a foreign firm have suffered another setback. At a public hearing today, the Minister of Transportation, Chibuike Amechi, denied allegations that his office ceded some of Nigeria's coastal waterways to a foreign company, HLSI security firm. However, the committee had to suspend the hearing as the Chief of Naval Staff, who was also before the committee, did not have details of the allegations and could not respond to them. Our correspondent, Lanre Lasisi, reports.
Honourable colleagues, invited guests.
It's the second time the House of Representatives Committee on Public Petition will be convening this hearing. The lawmakers are considering a petition on the alleged ceding of Nigerian coastal waterways by the Federal Ministry of Transportation and the Ministry of Defence to a foreign company. With representatives of both agencies present, the hearing commences. The Chief of Naval Staff starts with an explanation.
We had a letter of invite from this honorable committee, but the details of the petition were not made known to us.
The Minister of Transportation is next, and he responds to some of the issues raised in the petition.
The petition is predicated on these 2 points. And we have said if he says we are ceding, we will have no powers to cede. Only the President and possibly the National Assembly. We don't have such powers. That's why the President approved that those armed forces be trained to man our coastal way. And the reason why they are even going to man that coastal way is because the law that establishes NIMASA gave them that responsibility without giving them guns. Until we set up Coast Guard, which is the responsibility that should be given to NIMASA.
The proceeding is, however, interrupted by this lawmaker.
The Navy said they have not been served a copy of the petition, which apparently means that they are not really ready, in this sitting. Honorable Chairman, members of this committee are seeing the submissions from Ministry of Transport for the first time. And issues about security are very crucial issues that we need to understand what we're talking about.
He raises a motion for the hearing to be adjourned. The motion is passed and the meeting comes to a close. It's expected to reconvene early next year. Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the Senate has reached a decision to debate the federal government's plan to withdraw $1 billion from the excess crude account to fight insurgency and terrorism. The Deputy Senate President, Ike Ekweremadu, who raised the motion at plenary, reminded lawmakers that the matter was supposed to come up for debate on the floor, but that it was not listed on the order paper. But the Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, explained that the matter could not come up because the sponsor of the motion, Senator Samuel Anyanwu, was not available to present his motion. He gave the lawmakers the assurance that the motion will be brought up at the resumption of plenary in January 2018.
Up with the issue of the $1 billion released by the Governors Forum for the fight against insurgents, and under our rule, this matter is supposed to come up today for our consideration. But I've looked through the other paper and it's not there. I just want to seek explanation.
Next legislative day is when we resume. It will be the first item on the agenda on the other paper. Just for your information. He's not here. We can't take it when the person who is moving is not here. And it's a very, very important motion that needs to be delivered very well. So it cannot be delegated.
In spite of assurances by the federal government that the terrorist group Boko Haram had been decimated, the country continued to battle with the activities of the group in 2017. Other security challenges experienced across the country include kidnapping, cultism, as well as the farmer-herdsman clashes. In continuation of our review of the year 2017, our correspondent Amaka Okafor takes a look at some of the security challenges the country had to deal with in the outgoing year.
The security situation in Nigeria was a mixed grill this year. The nation entered 2017 with claims by the military to have decimated the Boko Haram terrorist group. This action was later to be explained as retrieving all Nigerian territories from the terrorists. The claims notwithstanding, the attacks on innocent Nigerians have continued, especially in the IDP camps and places of worship. 2017 saw an increase in the use of children, women and the vulnerable groups to perpetrate the attacks. The IDPs were not the only ones affected, as aid agencies also bear the brunt of the insurgents. Terrorism seemed not to be the only security challenge that has confronted the nation in the year 2017. The federal government had run-in battles with agitators of the state of Biafra in the southeast, culminating in the Operation Python Dance, when the acclaimed leader of the group, Mr. Nnamdi Kanu, who was thought to have been released on bail based on a political arrangement, did not stop his agitation, but instead raised concerns for the federal government. The confrontation between the military and the IPOB members following the setting up of a Biafra Secret Service and alleged name-calling led to the disappearance of Mr. Nnamdi Kanu. While his family and followers accused the federal government of having Mr. Kanu in their custody, a former governor of Abia State insists Mr. Kanu, who has a dual citizenship, has left the country. And while the agitators were protesting in the southeast, the menace of the herdsmen attack continued in the north-central states of Benue, Nasarawa and Plateau State, leading to the banning of open grazing in Benue and Ekiti states. Nigerians woke up to the sad news of the killing of over 60 people in Numan, Adamawa State, allegedly by herdsmen. The federal government has been criticized for its approach to the security challenge posed by these herdsmen.
Government should be made to be seen to be addressing the issues of herdsmen, farmers clashes holistically, and also providing some form of better management to livestock in the region.
The South-South has been largely peaceful. Even though there were threats from the Niger Delta Avengers, the Vice President's strategic tour to the region may have contributed to dousing the tension in the region. And in most of the southwest states, kidnapping and the activities of cult groups was the order of the day. The majority of the attacks was by members of the Bado cult group, which specializes in killing their victims in the most gruesome way. While some arrests have been made, the activities have continued. Perhaps the biggest security achievement for the federal government was the capture of the alleged kidnapping kingpin, Mr. Chukwudumeme Onwamebu, also known as Evans. The year also witnessed a campaign for the scrapping of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. The social media became awash with the End SARS campaign, and days after, Nigerians took to the streets to drive home their demand. A swift reaction by the Inspector General of Police has led to the arrest of some personnel and restructuring of the unit. But the campaigners insist that the harassments have continued and the unit should be scrapped. And as the year draws to a close, controversy has surrounded the prosecution of the war against terrorism in the Northeast following this announcement.
The governors have given permission to the federal government to spend the sum of $1 billion in the fight of insurgency. This money is supposed to be taken from the excess crude account.
They gave the mandate that they should spend this money not for an individual, but for the sake of this country. That is a great patriotism that you can expect.
Every state has its own peculiarities in terms of security. For me, Ekiti has hunger haram, where hunger is catching people everywhere. A lot of people are being kidnapped daily. They either vote money for me, from that money, or we leave it, share it, let everybody go and solve their problems.
And one cannot forget the release of additional girls abducted by the Boko Haram sect in the Northeast. 2017 has no doubt been an eventful year. One thing that is clear, however, is that more work needs to be done to ensure the security of lives and properties all over Nigeria. Amaka Okafor, Channels Television News.
Now let's look at this in a bit more detail, and joining me from Abuja is the facilitator at the Center for Crisis Communication and a security analyst, Air Commodore Darlington Abdullahi. Thank you so much for joining us on the news at 10. Right, let's move on now. Security was a major concern on different fronts. We saw the fight against insurgency in the Northeast, for instance. Now, how do you assess the government's efforts there? Let's start with that. Okay, if you can hear me, what I'm asking is for us to talk about security and the fight against insurgency in the Northeast. I think we've lost him there. Hopefully, we should be able to get him back pretty soon. I was trying to speak with Air Commodore Darlington Abdullahi on the security challenges which the country has faced in 2017, and hopefully we can get him back pretty soon. Right, let's move on now. If we can't get him back, and move on to some other stories now. Let's go on to, in just a moment, Edo State, where the state governor, Godwin Obaseki, is making efforts to settle the recent controversy between the Ijaw people living in the state and the palace of the Oba of Benin. The governor believes that the recent agitation is the handiwork of persons who want to scuttle his government's efforts, particularly the Gelegele Seaport project. Governor Obaseki was speaking to a delegation from the Ijaw community in the state who paid him a visit at the government house in Benin City.
As government, we have decided to, have a conversation with some of our Ijaw brothers and sisters to understand what is really going on. And from our findings, as we suspected, a lot of the instigation is coming from outside of the state. I mean, these are people who have lived here for 3-5 centuries. We've, intermarried, so they understand what the customs and traditions are. I guess some other fellows from outside of the state must perceive some threats. I mean, seeing the pace at which we're developing, we're going to, we had finalized plans to build an ultra-modern port in the Gelegele area. And those are all, developments that have suddenly led to agitations. So you ask yourself, is it not a contradiction? The government is bringing development to our people, to a place that hitherto was underdeveloped, and then you find a lot of hate talk and, anti-government rhetorics.
We are a peace-loving people. We want peace because we also want development. And like some of us said, but there can be no peace if there is in the midst of injustice. And we all highlighted some of the injustices. Those in authority, when there are issues, will first investigate and don't just jump on to take a position. One of us said it. Some of them in authority took a position, and that was almost brought about breakdown of law and order. So we are satisfied. The government is now taking the right step to do the right thing. he mentioned, said the Jaws in Edo State are no strangers. And that is who we are. We have been here for centuries, centuries upon centuries. We have never had any quarrel with the Beninese. But all of a sudden it came up. And we all know how it came up. However, the governor has set the tune. And we are in the right direction to achieving peace.
In part 2, after the break, more on security in 2017. We'll talk again to the facilitator at the Center for Crisis Communication and Security Analyst, Air Commodore Darlington Abdullahi. Do join us again.